Welcome everyone to this morning's webinar, which will be around email and phishing security and training, specifically looking at the product FortiFish. We're just going to wait a minute or two just for the last couple of people to come through. So if you haven't got a drink, quickly run and grab one or a coffee, and we'll get started for you guys in about a minute to two's time. All right, we'll get started now. Good morning, everyone. Hopefully you're all doing okay. And welcome to today's Info-Byte webinar. So this quarter, Wavelink's focusing on emailing phishing security and training services. And today's topic, we're going to be talking about FortiFish and how it fits into the Fortinet solution and how it can benefit you and your customers. At a high level today, we're going to be covering off what the current and evolving threat landscape looks like, an overview of Fortinet's email security platform approach. We'll do an introduction to FortiFish and outline the key features. And then we'll go through and have a look at what options are available from a licensing and inclusion standpoint for FortiFish. We'll have a look at where to find further information and some technical information. And we'll do a quick Q&A for any outstanding questions that you may have. Now, at any time, if you do have any questions, please feel free to use the questions section within the GoToWebinar. Brendon and myself will be monitoring it, and we're doing our best to get back and respond to any questions that you do have. Otherwise, feel free to keep the questions until the Q&A section, and we can also answer them there. And just in case you haven't met myself or my colleague before, I'll do a real quick introduction. My name's Kieran O'Brien, and I'm Wavelink's Fortinet enablement lead. I've got more than 5 years experience in the IT industry and technical sales. Eki House certified, and I'm currently sort of going through and building out my Wi-Fi expertise whilst developing a specialty within the SMB market. And with me today is one of our Fortinet pre-sales engineers, Brendon Schodel. Brendon's one of our pre-sales engineers based out of the sunny state of Queensland, and he's got more than 8 years experience within the industry, and he's been focusing on integration with Fortinet and other technologies. He's completed several certifications all the way from NSE 1 to 4, NSE 7, and he's also done the NSE A written exam. And with this comes a whole raft of expertise in various Fortinet products. And he's got a proven track record for delivering sort of high-end solutions all the way down to small SMB type solutions. So he's got an absolute wealth of knowledge, and I'm glad that he's here to join us today to introduce to you guys FortiFish. Before we jump in, I did want to take just a minute or two to introduce Wavelink, just in case you haven't dealt with us before. We are a product intimate distributor with a focused, narrow vendor profile, and we do this to try and not only support the technologies that we distribute, but also to try and help support our partners by being really focused on what we sell. In addition to that, we also support our partners through a range of specialized marketing campaigns and services that we have on offer to our partners, as well as a raft of professional services. So things like staging, rollout, and installation services. And if you'd like any further information on any of that detail, please don't hesitate to reach out either to myself or our account managers. But with that, we'll jump straight into the content for today. And just before we go in and have a look at what the current landscape is like, I just wanted to take a second to touch on exactly what is phishing, just in case that term isn't familiar with anyone that's joined us today. So for those that aren't ultimately familiar with what phishing is a scam where cyber criminals steal confidential information, such as online banking logins, your credit card details, business login, credentials and passwords, by sending fraudulent messages that imitate legitimate requests for information. And these deceptive messages often pretend to be from large organizations that you would typically trust, like Microsoft, for example. And it's done in this way to try and make the scam feel more believable. Now, phishing attempts can be sent through many channels. There's email, which is the most prevalent one. There's SMS, instant messaging, and even social media platforms. And they often contain a link to a fake website where you're encouraged to go through and enter in these confidential details. And that's the way that they're stealing your logins and passwords and confidential information. And most of us will know phishing attempts aren't new. They've been around for a long time. And that's just because sadly, most of us, if not all of us, has been a victim at some point and received phishing at some point. It's very prevalent and it's only increasing. But to provide some context around why it's becoming such a sore point for businesses all around Australia and the globe, let's discuss the current threat landscape. So for those who weren't here for our last Info-Byte, where we talked about specifically FortiMail, the Australian Cybersecurity Centre annual report for financial year ending in 2022 shows that a self-reported losses had increased, and this was due to business email compromised. And it had significantly increased over the previous year, all the way up to $98 million in self-reported losses. While this does show a slight decrease in the actual number of reports, it's decreased down to 1,514. The self-reported losses have increased in a very non-linear manner, showing that the impact to a business with each and every single attack is rapidly on the rise, and it's rapidly becoming even more and more expensive and more of a hindrance to businesses with each attack. Now, these reported attacks aren't limited to just scamming businesses out of money or goods. Cyber criminals are increasingly pretending to be business representatives to try and trick employees into revealing confidential business information. And the reason why they're doing this is to create an entry point for malicious actors to move into higher value targets within the network and launch really major ransomware attacks. Now, we're seeing that attacks moving away heavily from your traditional malware, and they're moving towards social engineering, ransomware, and more importantly, phishing attacks. A recent report by Verizon reveals that 82% of breaches involved human factor and human interaction. And this is things such as stolen credentials, user error, and more importantly, phishing. And 36% of overall business breaches were through email as the threat vector. And 82% of those breaches within themselves involved ransomware. So you can see here that the numbers don't look particularly great. And email is a major factor that is contributing to this. And things are only going to be getting worse for the human interaction factor, due to the introduction of things like AI tools for attackers. And AI tools, give access to an array of tools that allow hackers to more convincingly create phishing attempts and more advanced ways of circumventing traditional antivirus and anti-malware tools once they've made it into the network. And one of these tools is the ability to create polymorphic malware. And essentially what this means is the payload or the malware can modify its code to avoid detection. And this allows it to circumvent standard antivirus signature-based detection engines. And the latest tool that I'm sure most of us have heard about, which is OpenAI's ChatGPT, we've already seen attackers successfully creating polymorphic malware through ChatGPT, making accessibility of creating advanced malware one step easier for attackers. AI is also advancing phishing email attacks. Traditionally, AI required a really high level of expertise, which made it relatively inaccessible to most attackers. But now with services where AI as a service is prevalent, there is very little expertise required, making it much more accessible and dramatically reducing the cost for attackers to create really high quality malicious phishing emails. And there's certain things that new technologies are evolving, they're allowing to make this easier, like the ability to focus on personality analysis to generate phishing emails tailored to their victim's background and traits. We've also got large language models, like those found in modern AI platforms like ChatGPT, which give criminals better tools to create targeted cyber attacks, especially for those without the necessary writing or cultural knowledge. The AI will do that all for them. And this just means it's going to get more and more difficult for platforms and people to be able to identify scams and identify phishing and take action based on it. And the scary part is the transition to AI tools has only just begun. We're seeing more and more new tools and attack vectors being created at an alarming rate. And an example of this is researchers have successfully used AI picture generation and ChatGPT to create a completely AI-generated, highly advanced social engineering attack. And another example of this is Microsoft have recently released a AI solution called Valley, and Valley basically allows you to imitate to a surprisingly convincing level a voice with just a 3-second sample. And it's only time before tools like these are used as part of social engineering attacks in combination with existing solutions. So to try and combat this, Fortinet has taken a platform approach to email security to make sure that there are multiple attack vectors completely covered and protected against. And Fortinet's solution revolves around their security fabric to counter the growing sophistication of these threats and multi-vector campaigns. And as part of the fabric, threat intelligence and other telemetry can be shared for enhanced security across the entire converged security infrastructure. And this allows for so much. And one big component of it is, IT and security teams, instead of being bogged down with having to figure out how do we circumvent and remove these potential attack vectors, we can utilize some of the security fabric to automate, things like response and patching to try and reduce the burden on IT teams. And now the approach that Fortinet have taken is heavily revolved around the human-centric threat defense approach. And there's 3 key components to that. And the first is to educate employees with periodic training to minimize the risk of that human error element, and allows and ensures that employees understand the importance of security and email security. Secondly is to invest in user awareness training so that users can learn how to recognize the signs of specifically phishing attacks and other indicators of malicious intent to try and reduce, again, that human error. And then finally, the last component is to utilize an email security platform that provides advanced threat protection, spoofing, and impersonation protection to try and stop those emails and stop those threats from ever reaching directly to the employees. So this platform consists of 3 products at a minimum. There's FortiMail, which is Fortinet's advanced multi-layer protection against email-borne threats. There's FortiPhish that we're talking about today, and that's Fortinet's phishing simulation platform, which allows you to recognize and report phishing and other threats to users. And then there's the Fortinet security awareness training, which sort of goes through and creates a cyber-aware workforce that goes beyond just email security, but it plays a really important part as part of their email security platform approach. Now with that, I will pass across to Brendon to do an introduction and some details into exactly what FortiPhish is.
Thanks, Kieran. So today I'm going to be taking you through FortiPhish and showing you the power of it. So because email remains a primary threat vector for malicious actors, you need to educate and test your employees or your users, whoever they are, to be able to identify email-based threats. So Fortinet FortiPhish is a phishing simulation service to test your employees against real-world phishing techniques identified by FortiGuard Labs. So FortiGuard Labs is Fortinet's elite cybersecurity threat intelligence and research organization. With phish testing as part of your broader security awareness program, your employees can learn to recognize, avoid, and report email-based cybersecurity threats, including phishing, impersonation, business email compromise, and ransomware. There are 3 steps to the phishing simulation. These steps are clearly defined to guide you through your testing and education needs. The first step is defined by assessing your baseline. Let's understand where your staff and or your clients are in their journey to recognizing potential phishing emails. Once this step is completed, the results need to be assessed and graded. This gives us the baseline, which you can then only improve upon. Well, at least hopefully. This will also demonstrate areas where the users need the most upskilling. Then we can teach. There are videos and resources available for the users to better understand phishing techniques. FortiPhish is a feature-rich product that gives you the power to help secure your environment. This is achieved through predefined and custom templates, comprehensive dashboards, phish testing based on difficulty levels, and it's also got multi-language support. FortiPhish has a number of predefined templates you can use like DocuSign or Dropbox, or you can create your own templates to impersonate emails that you might send from your company. Dashboards help you track your campaign to see how it's faring, and maybe you've made it too complex or too easy. There are also 3 different difficult levels, which we'll see later. And of course, it needs to be multi-language to support all your users. So FortiPhish is a product designed to bring awareness to scams and to educate users so that they don't get trapped. And this is done through testing, assessing, and then education. It's really easy to launch a campaign on FortiPhish. There's 5 simple steps that you have to configure. First of all, you have to select the template. Choose what email you want to deliver to your users. Select who the sender is going to be. It might be the accounting department or the management team, or it could even be a sales person, trying to just generate business. Then select your target. And this could be a group of users, it could be individual users. That's up to you. Then you can select the schedule. You might want it to go out today, you might want it to go out in a week, or you might want to drip feed them and have many go out. Then you just start the campaign and look at the results. So this is a sample dashboard. You can see there's various steps that the users have completed through the campaign. So you can see that they've opened the email, or that they've clicked on a link, or that they've submitted some information. Now, if they get to this stage, obviously, they need some education. Some links provide access to a file that they have to download, or an attachment, and they've opened that attachment, and that gives us more information about that user. We can also see the users that have replied to the email. And by replying, they're obviously giving away information as well. We can then also see the users that have reported the email as a scam. Now, we'll see that feature in FortiPhish soon, but there's a report feature that lets FortiPhish know that this email is a scam and then can provide defenses against it. So the overall response monitor displays the ratio of recipients who has passed or failed your organization's security training. The monitor also includes detailed information about the email distribution and click rate across the campaigns. So, and it's in percentages and totals as well. So we can see exactly how many people have done it. The group analysis widget displays the response rates for the users groups as a chart. So we could have a group analysis chart for every group that you send the emails to. And you can create as many groups as you like. So some of the features of FortiPhish. So first of all, we have the predefined templates. And as you can see, there's one here for Commonwealth Bank and LinkedIn and Salesforce and Office 365. These are the common ones that go out on a regular basis. We can also do predefined landing pages. So once they click on the email, it then takes them to click on a link in the email. That then takes them to a website that looks like the login page for Office 365, for example. Except it's not Office 365, it's going to be FortiPhish. And then using that, we can capture the credentials that they enter and gather more information. It has broad language support. So you know, there's lots of different languages in the world, and FortiFish supports a lot of them as well. There's country-specific templates. So obviously we're in Australia, so we would use templates that are targeted towards Australia. However, if you've got staff in the Philippines or staff in the United States or staff, you know, anywhere around the world, we can target those countries as well. And there's business and consumer brands. So, you know, it's quite a wide variety of templates. So some of the options that we can do, we can include file attachments, you know, so it could be a Word document or what used to be a screensaver, not anymore, but you know, it could be an executable file, it could be a zip folder, you know, include an attachment. We can embed malicious links. So those links will be the landing pages that you want to go to. Like, for example, you can see in the screenshot, it's uber.com. We can increase the difficulty. So there's 3 different difficulty levels that we'll go into shortly, and that will show you the differences in whether it's simple or challenging. We can track the user replies, so we can see how many times I've replied to that email and look for the response and look at the information that they're given out. We can then also teach them at the point of click. So once they've clicked on the scam or clicked on the URL, it can then take them to some videos that they have to watch before they're allowed to go back to doing what they were doing. So there's 3 different difficulty levels. There's simple, moderate, and challenging. And as you might want to start off at the simple and see how many users can detect that it's a scam. And you then might do another attack and change it to moderate and then go to challenging. And then as it gets more difficult, you'd want to hope that your users are detecting the more difficult ones. So you can see here is 2 different DocuSign examples. And on the simple one on the left-hand side, you'll see there's incorrect grammar, there's odd punctuation. And this is imitating someone who may not have English as their first language that has written this scam email to try and trick the user into collecting information. Now, that's not always the case, because if you have a look at the challenging example, there's no obvious visual indicators. The grammar is correct. The sentence structure is all correct. You wouldn't be able to pick that it's different. And if you compare it to a legitimate DocuSign email, you would find that it's pretty close to being real as well. So it would be very challenging to detect this. You can also create custom phishing templates. So these, you can choose your own landing page. Like you might send it to, you know, an internal web server, for instance, something that your team might use on an everyday basis. You can include your own attachments, you can change the headers, you can make it look how you want it to look. And this would relate to like your company letterhead. You know, the choice is yours. So in the custom landing page, we can obviously use our Wavelink one, for instance, which is our Info-Byte, and it would look exactly like that web page. But when you click on a link, it might give you an attachment to a zip file. And then once that user downloads that zip file and execute it, that's part of the scam, and we'll be able to see that on the dashboard. Now, if the user does enter credentials into that landing page or into that website, any information that the user enters does not get saved by FortiPhish. We are not collecting information for the sake of using it, so there's no need to save it. We just need to know that they have entered into information. So learning at the point of click. So once they get redirected to an embedded training video, they will have to watch this video before they're allowed to do anything else. And this is to educate the users on the scam that they have clicked on, because, you know, they definitely got phished. Now there's 2 different videos by default. There's what is phishing and there's an avoid phishing attack. So it teaches them what phishing is, and then it teaches them how to detect that that's a phishing email. Now there is a grading system for each of your users, which goes from A, B, C, D, and F, F being fail, A being top marks. Now, every user is graded based on how far through the scan they got. Did they detect it outright and just delete the email, or did they actually open the email, click on the link, and then, how far through it did they get? And we can see, all the different pieces of information, how they all collate as well. And so overall, they get a grade, and then that grade can then be used to set that baseline to then obviously improve upon at a later date. So the phishing alert button. So we can integrate into Outlook and create a button whereby the user just clicks on it to alert FortiPhish that this email is a scam. Now, it's just like, pressing scam in Office or pressing junk in Office and sending it to junk, it creates that list. The difference is by alerting FortiPhish, it then also integrates with FortiMail and then tells FortiMail to block similar types of emails. It can also be used in Thunderbird, and there may also be some other integrations with other clients as well. They're always implementing new features, so it's just something to keep an eye out on. So the next topic is going to be the Fortinet security awareness and training integration. So this is where, the next level goes to, and we'll be presenting about this in our next Info-Byte. So please look out for the links for that as well. Going to hand back over to Kieran to talk about the ordering information and how you purchase FortiPhish.
Thanks, Brendon. Sorry, let me just catch up. All right, so FortiPhish is a SaaS or software as a solution product, meaning there's no additional infrastructure required for it to be deployed, configured, and then tested to get up and running with FortiPhish, which makes it really simple and really easy. And it is licensed on a per mailbox or per user based subscription model with a one-size-fits-all approach. So you simply get all the access with the license. So we can see here, we get access to those templates, event-specific templates. You go through and create your custom templates and those point-and-click splash screens. We did have a question from Josh just before around the point-and-click. It sort of said, "Whoa, you got scammed." And that's just a demo that we had created. You can go through and you can customize those splash screens to be whatever you would like them to be. And that's all included as part of the license. So you could make it more appropriate for your company and maybe put your company logo in the top right-hand corner and customize it to be whatever you would need it to be. Now you also get access to all of the reporting as well. Integration with the Fortinet security awareness and training service that Brendon just said, it is included, which means if you've got both of those services, then you can integrate the two. But if you're purchasing just FortiPhish and you want to extend out with the Fortinet security awareness and training service, then you would need to purchase that separately. And as Brendon said, we'll be talking about that as our next topic next week. So if you're interested in that service as well, please come along. And then of course you get your multilingual support, but it's not just for like the user interface from an administrative standpoint. It's the templates. The templates are all multilingual. So there's ones for English, there's ones for Japanese, there's all different languages in there, so all predefined for you. And then obviously with both options, you can go through and you can manually import users, or you can connect to an LDAP or a zero AD service to pull in your user and your user groups. So you don't have to do that manually, which is all pretty nice. Now there's only 3 main SKUs that you can order, depending on how many number of mailboxes you would like to license. So there's a 25 mailbox, there's a 500 mailbox, and a 10,000 mailbox SKU. And these licenses are stackable. So it means if you needed 525 mailboxes, let's say, you would purchase the 25 pack and the 500 pack, and now you've got a 525 pack. You can also purchase this with a duration of 1, 2, 3, and 5 years, depending on your requirement. So if you only wanted 500 mailboxes for 2 years, you can purchase a 2-year subscription. Now, if you would like further information regarding FortiPhish, there's heaps of resources at your fingertips. The product page is full of some really useful information and stuff that we've sort of covered off a little bit with today's. There's also a data sheet, again, goes through some really useful information, and it's got some key benefits written on there that might be useful for you when you're presenting the solution to the customer. We'll quickly open it for a little bit of Q&A just in case we've missed any questions. Brendon, I'll read these out to you. How many phishing templates are there?
That is an excellent question.
That is an excellent question. I don't know the number directly off the top of my head, but I know there are a substantial amount, and they're constantly growing. So Fortinet are constantly adding to the catalog, and they're adding them, globally. And when you go through and you actually create your phishing simulation, and you go through and you select your templates, there's a really good list at the top where you can go down and you can filter down on what one you would like to show. So, for example, if you were targeting Australia, you could choose the geographical location of Australia, and it would filter down the list of, whatever it is, hundreds of templates down to the ones that are most prevalent for Australia. So some of those, like we saw, were like Commonwealth Bank and Salesforce and things like that. And then obviously you can then choose languages and difficulties, and it's really quite, there's a lot of templates that are in there. Another one here, when using the PAB button, is there any testing of the submitted email in order to determine if it was actually malicious?
FortiMail would definitely test it. Well, it would actually be submitted to FortiGuard Labs as well, and they would test it and then create a signature for it, and definitely look out for it. It wouldn't just be submitted and blocked, and because they'd have to create a dynamic process to identify the links, or similar information in the email to be able to detect it. So it isn't just simply block the sender. It will actually be investigated.
Perfect. And then we've got a question here that I should be able to respond to, is how much effort is involved in the administration side? It's a pretty simple solution. As Brendon touched on before, there's 5 major key things to step through. But from an administration standpoint, it's really simple and easy to go through. You select your template, you select your difficulty, you select if you want malicious URLs added to try and see if your email solution will block it. And it's very simple. Click and select next, click and select next, click and select next. It's very simple. And on the user group side too, you can pull user groups and users from LDAP or Azure AD, so you don't have to manually import them either. So from adding user accounts into the solution, it's very easy as well. And then we had a question for price point examples. If you did want any price point examples, just reach out to your account manager or reach out to myself afterwards. I'm happy to get a list of the price points for you. All right, I'll quickly jump in. If there's any questions that we haven't answered just yet, don't worry. The system keeps track of the answers. Any that we haven't answered, we'll quickly respond to you post the event. But where to go from here? To try and help you on the road to success, I've put together some 5 next steps for you guys to take to sort of get you onto that road. The first step would be to reach out to your account manager and to try and arrange further discussions with our pre-sales team. We can sit down and talk about it from a sales and a technical perspective. We can run through and actually show you how to create the campaigns, how you can modify them and create your own templates, we can show you all that and do some nice run-throughs. The second step would be then to log into the FortiFish portal. If you have a FortiCloud Premium license for your tenancy, you can actually go in and try FortiFish for free. I believe it's a maximum of 30 campaigns or 30 users you can use for free. But if you have that FortiCloud Premium license, get in there and give it a go, because you have free access, limited free access, I should say. The next step post that would be to run an internal demo internally to make sure that you've got that sort of first-hand experience and go through and play with the wide array of predefined and custom phishing templates. The next step, once you've got that familiarity with the solution, would be then to run a demo for a prospective customer to go through and highlight to them how FortiFish helps their users identify and protect themselves against phishing within their own organization. So you could go through and use one of the predefined templates, or you could very quickly mock up a custom one that works directly for that customer, maybe based off of an internal newsletter or something they send through, and you could test it and show the customer the actual value directly to them. And then the final step would be to develop and sell a converged Fortinet email security platform designed to work for that customer. So if the conversation starts with FortiPhishing, then you probably want to make sure that you're also going about and talking about, okay, what current email gateway solution do you have? Because if you're implementing these phishing services, then you want to make sure that your first line of defense is working correctly. And then you might also want to talk about, what other training services do they have? Do they have something in there to train up their employees further on best practices and how to identify malicious intent? So then that gives you sort of the leeway to talk about further services and further solutions to help bolster their email security services. Otherwise, that's all we have for today. Thank you guys so much for coming along and listening to us talk about FortiPhish. If you'd like any additional information about the product, please reach out to us pre-sales at wavelink.com.au, or reach out directly to your account manager. They can get you in touch with us. Otherwise, thank you, Brendon, so much for joining me on this one. And
Thank you,
we'll
Kieran.
see you
Thank you,
guys
everyone.
hopefully next week.
Have a great day, everyone.